Good morning, everybody. Hope everything is going well. You guys were pretty easy as far as rollover. I am just opening up Idaho's enrollment today. If at some point you guys decide to change age divisions, that's a pretty laborious process, and it's been a massive learning curve. Literally, it's taken us the full 4 days since October 1 to get all of the updates implemented in the system from, be it on our side and then also the server side. If you have changes that you need made into the system, it is important to note that the servers for 4-H Online are in Texas. So at minimum, it can take upwards of 15 minutes for changes to take place, whether it's an activation, turning on something, and that type of thing. So it's not as instantaneous as me just clicking something. There is another process, and there's a talking of the systems, if you will, that has to occur for those changes to be realized. I guess, I don't know about y'all, but there's been a lot of there'll probably be an influx. I mean, you guys already have 175 enrollments in the system, so there's been a lot of activity since the rollover. A couple of things to be aware of when you're doing your enrollments. On your search screen, and let me do a share screen. You can do this at any level, but you want to keep an eye on your search screen. Flag or search for incomplete records, and these are usually a good indicator. Either they may have timed out, so if they're returning youth, which this kind of looks like, then I wouldn't be so worried about it. But if they're brand new to the system, that's something to look forward to as well. And then just keeping track on the incompletes and pendings. We want to try to encourage folks to get their enrollment fees paid, and you can also add that. You can check for your incomplete and pending. I'm searching on a larger level than what you would at your county, but you can see there's a lot of activity here. And so that's one thing to kind of push towards, is to make sure these families get their enrollment fees into you. If there's somebody that does run into an issue or they can't work through 4-H Online, there may be a variety of reasons as to why they're incomplete. My number one question when I'm working with families is, what browser do you use? And it is a good practice to get into that habit. 90% of the time you're going to have folks say that I use Internet Explorer, or they're trying to do the enrollment process on their handheld device. 4-H Online, as it stands, is in a non-responsive format, or at least this version of 4-H Online is in a non-responsive format. So that means this information that comes across, or that's in the system that comes across on your phone, is not going to be real keen to adapt to that phone. And you can definitely tell when you go onto a responsive site how you're able to view the information. It kind of automatically adjusts to the size of device you have, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a phone, whether it's working on your desktop, to even your laptop. Version 2.0 of 4-H Online will have that, but we don't. Regardless of what format you're using 4-H Online, Internet Explorer is not a supported browser. So for best results using 4-H Online, it's really important to get your families into the habit of using either Firefox or Google Chrome. I've worked on Macs. You can do, there's a Mercury, which is a Firefox similar type browser that works well, and Google Chrome works just fine on Macs as well. So that's definitely something to think about. Your new families really shouldn't do the enrollment process via their phone, just because it's a lot of initial information. It's one thing when you're re-enrolling, you just go, okay, for the most part, all they have to read you is their consent, update medical information if you have that in there, verify what projects they're taking. And so it's night and day as far as the amount of information they have to go through between that first year to second year in terms of the enrollment process. A big piece for your clubs. Carrie, do you have them do their financial summary reports?
This coming year we will. Right now they are just collected at the local level.
Okay. That's something to think about, and you definitely are going to want to have these conversations with your leaders for your clubs. From basically once you get past this 4-H year, from that point forward, those financial summaries need to be in. Typically November 1 is a common deadline for that to occur. And if you don't get the financial summary reports, there are things that we can do within the system to ensure that we're getting that paperwork, and then once we have it, then the enrollments can come in for that club. So that's something we'll probably visit about next year, but that's definitely a piece I'm sure Carrie will be working with you guys on as far as working with your clubs. The reminder that we are working underneath the 4-H umbrella. We're not independent. So we do have a higher level of accountability, especially state institutions, with the changes that we've gone through the last few years for that chartering and the EIN component. And I'm not going to go into a whole financial piece, but there are pieces of the pie that we have to are accountable for, can be audited on. So it's a pretty important conversation. One thing, if your enrollments were at any point open to the families, and let me go back into do a share screen here. If at any point where, let's say you had families entering in their own enrollments, and you get to that point where it's fair time where you don't want system changes to be made, it's really important to have these boxes unchecked. Now, if you're doing strictly paper-based enrollment, then these boxes should be checked. And where I'm at, enrollment tab, options, and a quarter of the way down, if that. So do not allow families to create their record. Do not allow families to edit this record. That means that if they are attempting to log in and attempting to re-enroll or create a profile, if those boxes are checked, they cannot do that. A workaround or something to consider is if you have a project deadline, if you will, for FAIR. A lot of 4-H counties are moving to this month and day of last project selection. And what that does is that gives you the ability, if you do have a deadline for FAIR, then you can pretty much put in what their last date or where they should be selecting projects for. They can still come in and access their information. They just can't change their projects, which is kind of handy. Another piece to think about or consider is if you have families logging into the system, there's no reason why you can't have your leaders logging into the system. You can provide club and leader login. In the last few times we've kind of talked about that, but I've gone through that a lot. Another thing to consider also is just as you're working through, and if enrollments are coming in, make sure you've linked your projects to your clubs. And that's regardless if you are a paper-based enrollment or if you have families logging in. So again, on that linking projects to club, it's under the options button. and it's in this little gray ribbon underneath the dashboard. And so from this list, you'll want to select your club, and then from there your projects will populate. If all of the projects are offered by the club, just simply click select all. Now if a majority are, you can still do that and unselect the ones that aren't applicable. Or if it's only a few off of this list, then just go down, select the appropriate project, and then be sure to scroll down, and I think there's an update at the top. If you're close to the top, there's also an update button at the bottom, but you want to make sure after you've made your selections to hit update. You have to do that even if you are doing paper-based enrollments. This is a piece that you're going to have to repeat for each of your clubs for your county, and you'll want to double check on all of that before you get into the processing of your enrollment paperwork. If you have a club missing, you'll want to add your club first and then link your projects. If there are projects missing in your list, you can always add a project alias. And adding a project alias is very simple. You just click on the art palette in the gray ribbon underneath the dashboard, hit project, add project alias, enter in the title, and then select from the drop-down list what a similar area, be it animals, family, consumer science, that type of thing, where that content is relevant. Then what will happen is that when you go to link your projects to the clubs, that project will now show up in there. So that is an important housekeeping piece before you start getting into families enrolling, for sure. And certainly if you're keying in enrollments. If you have your system open up to families and they can't do that, you will get a lot of phone calls because they can't move through that enrollment process if there's nothing for them to select on the project site. So you'll have a lot of incomplete enrollments at that point, and or a lot of phone calls. One thing to also do, or since it's early in the season, a lot of counties do in October, November newsletter, and you can post that right here in the system. This is very helpful in terms of communicating information to your family. So it's a matter of just clicking newsletters. We're going to be on the Connect tab. You have newsletters, click Add Newsletter, and you'll want to enter in a title. Oops. And then click Create. And then you just enter in, your title will populate there. You enter in the date, or you can just click it. And then you have the option here of sharing with members, sharing with managers. So it's usually information you want to share with everybody in your program. I definitely recommend making sure that any information you post on here is uploaded as a PDF. And it's just a matter of selecting your appropriate newsletter. And you can see there now it's attached. And then all you need to do is click Save, and then it will be there. Let me see. Let me just click Save, and then I can show you kind of where and how this will appear. For your managers, you're going to see it here on your home screen. You also have a list here of items to review. So enrollment's pending, that's a good flag area for you that you have an enrollment pending in your system. Here is your enrollment snapshot as far as enrollment activity that you've had for the year. And then for your families, where this information will show up at is, and this is again, if your families are logging in, this is what the family home screen looks like. And since this particular county has the do not allow existing and do not allow new families to create / edit their profile, what's missing here is that big orange button for families to see that. But this is quote unquote the family news or the family home screen. So I'm pretending I was the Nevers family. I was going to log in, and after I click the login button, this is what I see. So there is the ability to make announcements or to share information to your families on that, in that method. I'm going to go back here and delete that newsletter. If you are just testing around with it, you can always leave those share with managers, share with family boxes unchecked. If you need to come back to something, or if you're not sure if all the information in your newsletter is correct, you can always edit it, and then once you're set, then all you need to do is check those boxes, and then you'll be good to go. I see some activity. Okay, I think I answered Stormy's question. So if the family has a profile but have never used 4-H Online themselves, so that means that you've created a profile. The easiest and the quickest way to work around getting those families to log in is from your home screen. You'll see the member list. You'll want to make contact with the family and verify that the family email address is correct. The family account is the gateway to 4-H Online. And so since they already have a record, and more than likely youth and or volunteer records affiliated to that family account, making sure that this email address is right, and then if it's changed, either edit it or keep it the same, and then simply click reset password. And so then what will happen is 4-H Online will automatically send a temporary password to that family account. And the instructions are just have the family go to their email address, copy and paste that temporary password, go to the Nevada login screen, and so that's right here, and they'll click I have a profile. They'll type in their email address, copy and paste that temporary password, and click Roll Family. Or I do it that way because they don't always remember what their email address is. So another option is they could go, I forgot my password, and then the system will walk them through that. It'll still send them a temporary password, but if they don't know definitively what email address they've used, I go that other way just to make that connect with them. One thing that your families are going to need to check, especially depending on their email address, some of those email firewalls are kind of sticky. So depending on how the company is set up, like if you are working with a family that has a Yahoo or a Gmail account, it may or may not go to spam, and I've not seen really any consistency on that front, but they should get that email there. Now, if it's a private company, it may hit their firewall, and it may not even happen, might not even get into their initial email box. That individual is going to have to work with their IT provider to make sure that the do not reply at 4honline.com is a whitelisted address. So that's why I make that contact with that family, kind of feel out, okay, what's your email address? And usually you can stay on the phone, and by the time the system sends that temporary password, you can go, okay, did you get the email? Yeah. And that just that little extra touch on the customer service side does go a long way. If you're getting inundated, I realize you may not have the time to do that with every family, but that is definitely something to look at, where if you know families have that internet access, by all means, encourage them to use the system. There's a lot of benefits to that. Yes, we still have to manage the data in our counties, but it takes us out of having to key all that information in. We can monitor versus being the drivers on that. And then especially providing that authorization. There's consent elements that they're authorizing. And so where it becomes an important piece is if there's an issue with that. it's important that the families are taking ownership of that, if that makes sense. So I hope I answered that question. It's, I guess the best way to describe 4-H online is, yes, it's a little intimidating at first, but the more you get to use it, the easier it becomes. And then the families, as time moves on, they're going to go, oh, well, yeah, why didn't we do this earlier? So change is hard for families. Change is, it should be a 4-letter word instead of change. C-H-A-N. Yeah, 4-letter word instead of a 6-letter word. But it's difficult. So I totally get that. But there are definitely benefits to having your families engage and utilize the system. And a piece, if they are, go through your list of who you're sending your newsletter out. If you're doing a paper-based newsletter, then if your family's using the system, they've made an indication perhaps a correspondence preference is via email, then you don't need to email them or send them a paper copy of your newsletter. So that allows you a cost savings. I know that the August newsletters tend to be a little beefy, and so your postage goes through the roof. So where you can do some cost savings is great. Another piece to encouraging your families to use the system is when we move forward, perhaps like into event registration. You can register for statewide events, or even if it was something that you guys are partnering on a local level, be it a joint district or a joint county event. The beauty about 4-H Online is we have all the information we're collecting at the enrollment side as far as their authorization, their consent to medical treatment. We're collecting all their personal information, be it their name, their birth date, their family's your emergency contact information. You don't have to reinvent that. Oh, excuse me. You don't have to reinvent that in your enrollment packet. You just focus on the nitty-gritty elements, if you will, that are pertinent to that event. So those are definitely some awesome options that we've really utilized as far as other states once you're moving into 4-H Online and getting your families into that. Oh, sorry, hold on. Okay. Additional questions? I'm opening up the floor.
Just so everybody knows too, I'm going through ES 237s, and I will probably, if I see an issue, like I've already got 4 issues right now, so I'll be talking to, probably asking Erica why is this, and then going to those counties and saying, like I just found one county that has numbers on the first page, but they have absolutely no projects listed. Like there's no numbers in the projects pages. And so trying to figure that out. Yeah.
Okay, that's a new one on me.
Yeah, so just so the 5 of you or 4 of you know that if there are issues, I will be getting a hold of you and working through. I know Eureka, Joelle and I are gonna try to get her stuff. She wasn't able to get it all in the system by Friday night, so I'm gonna work with her to try to get all of that put in.
Between you and me, there's still a little bit of a window for states to make that adjustment. So you have a narrow amount of time to do that. But that has to be done on your side there, Carrie.
Yep.
It can't be done on the county side. But
yep, I knew that. So
okay.
I'll work with you to get that done. So I just wanted to, let you guys know that too, that we are, we're going to get it as correct as possible because our numbers were down pretty significantly this year. And I think it's just some data entry issues. I found 2 counties that have no data right now. And I'm only at Eureka, so.
Okay, well, those are definitely things that can be adjusted. We do have a narrow window of time to do that. And James will automatically send that. So if there's something I can help you out with,
Okay.
let me know. Maybe bring it with you to next week.
That's kind of what I'm planning. Yeah. So just so you guys know, we are, I mean, that's part of, I'm trying to get, so next year we're going to be right on track. Everybody's going to know how to do this. And nobody's leaving. We're going to have no new staff next year by this point.
That would be great. And I guess if there's questions or elements as we're kind of doing these sessions, keep a list of what you have and bring them to these sessions, because there's a lot of things I can talk about, but at some point it's going to sound a little redundant. So, and I don't know,
the one that we've gotten quite a bit of, I think this last year has been, or this last week has been that project where we have the 2 counties that lost their projects. And I know you talked briefly about that.
Yeah, the linking projects to clubs. So what's going to happen, I can actually show you kind of what it looks like as you're working through the enrollment, or what you're going to see. Let me get into okay, so let me go quickly here. Which club or cause? Okay, so I don't know if there's
I just know that we've had that question a couple of times this week. So as people are getting ready to work on new enrollments.
Let me try to find enrollment here. I don't want to have to go into to re-enroll somebody. Okay, so on the participation side, when you get to this point with projects, you can select your club and select your project. And if this element here is empty or no projects populate on that, that's what that's going to look like. And that will look the same actually for your families as well. And it looks like these all have been updated to reflect project selection. So that is an important piece. Now, if you have somebody, now this enrollment is active. Okay, so one thing that you need to check when you're going through your county authorizations, selection of the club is all good and fine on the participation community club, but you need to get into the habit of making that link between the club and the project. And I don't know, that might be a little bit of a new piece for there, but that would make that does make an impact on your ES 237, and that might be a spot carry to check on counties where if they're not showing any project interaction or activity, that project piece is there. Another thing to think about, it's okay to have a broad quantifier for shooting sports and for leadership. Those will be your clubs, but their engagement and their activity is actually in the project. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that duplication. There is that possibility where if I'm trying to kind of thinking back to what was going on in Franklin County as an example, Carrie. I still don't know quite how they did that. That was kind of, am I on the right track there with how they did that? They had their all of their projects set up as a club, and then they actually had all of their projects linked to that club. So what that was doing was showing engagement. I think it was creating a double count for them. So where you would have a county of like 200 to 300 kids, it was showing their enrollments up to 900. So that is something to keep in mind on that. So when you are doing your review, let me go back in. So when you're going in to approve your members, and I don't know if there are any members, okay, let me log into Washoe. I can show you. On your confirm members piece, when you, and if you, this is where you would go if you have families logging in to 4-H Online and their enrollment is submitted, or once you click that submit, I think on the county side, if you're keying in the enrollments, it automatically gives you that county manager review. It kind of recognizes that you're in there. I may be wrong. You may have to hit submit and come to here. But while I'm on the enrollment tab, confirm members, and this gives you a listing of members and volunteers needing county approval. When you go to this county review section, this gives you a snapshot. So it looks like you may have a duplicate here, which you'll want to look at the families, and this is what I was saying about the email addresses being updated. To me, it looks like a duplicate. So if the new confirm account if it's just a matter of changing this email address, let me know and I can fix this for you. But it's a matter of cutting out that email address and deleting this new record, and then importing that new email address, and then and deleting actually the new family of records. So yeah, but on the county review, as I was saying, when you scroll down, why doesn't it show? Why doesn't it show here, Carrie, the projects? Let me go into a different one. This might be a bad example to.
So Stormy is asking like a basic example of a club, and then the project alias, and then the example of an activity. We have all pretty much brand new people on here today.
Okay. So. Okay. Okay. So this is a bad. These are bad records to be looking at. Okay. So a club is the repository, if you will, where you'll have multiple members of different projects in the club, and this club is an organizational group, if you will, where they can do their demonstrations. You'll have older youth engaged as club officers, and then a lot of times that club will engage not only in a service learning component or community service program, but they also do fundraising. You can have project-based clubs, and so in that instance, you would have the project club that is specific to perhaps maybe it's cat, dogs, or whatever. But they can meet. I guess they can do fundraising as well. So with your clubs, your organizational clubs, we have a little bit different structure in Idaho. So we have our big warehouse, our bigger program, our clubs, and then underneath that we have members from different projects that engage in that and come together. And then they also meet as a project. So I hope that explains that question. A project alias. So if you have something, a project alias may be a project that is only offered in your county, or perhaps it's something that's not quite listed on the state level list. So project alias could be, an example of a project alias that we use here in Idaho is jewelry making. It's not a project that's supported at the state level, but counties here and there do offer that project, and it is a curriculum. I don't know what state they got it from, but the project alias gives you that option for if you have a project-based or a community club, then that option shows up for them to engage in that. As far as examples of activities, I'm going to switch over to Idaho, and I can give you a better screenshot of kind of how counties have done this. The activities gives you a way of making a connection that a youth has engaged in a different activity through the course of the year. Now, bear in mind, this doesn't replace or supersede what you do on your group enrollments, but this is actual other opportunities that that individual is engaged in throughout the course of the year. So, for example, in Benewah County, let me do a share screen here. As a way to track members who've engaged in horse bowl, you can create that activity, and then once your activity is created, you can flag members' names, and you can go add flagged to an activity. And so once you do that, what you will see here is you'll have your activity. I'm at the state level now, so it's not quite, I can move to county though.
So just to kind of let you guys know, within our project list right now in Nevada, we have a lot of activities that are listed as projects. So things like horse showmanship is actually a class at the fair, not a project. We have things like or horse judging, horse bowl, livestock judging. Those are not projects, those are activities. So I'm hoping in the next year that we can get that fixed, and that by Erica explaining this, that we will get that fixed.
Yeah, fashion review is not a project. That is an activity. Exchange programs, now it just kind of depends that if it's tied to a curriculum, then it can be a project. But if I'm just reading this as exchange program to make an indicator that that individual is engaged in an exchange program, that would be an activity. Let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Horse showmanship, again, that is an activity. We don't do hunter safety in Idaho. We have a hunting, and hunter safety is not, I do not know of, this does not supersede hunter safety offered by states. We are not fishing game. So that would be an activity. Now, if it's a hunting project that's offered through 4-H shooting sports, then that would be that. But we are not in the hunter safety business as a 4-H program. Let's see. Other activities. I don't know of any martial arts 4-H projects. That might be an activity, but if there's a curriculum that can tie to it, then that's a project. I guess that is where the delineation kind of comes through.
And I'm not seeing it this year, but last year there was an overnight camp project, and either it got taken out or something, but it's not in there anymore. But I did notice that we only have statewide 219 kids enrolled in overnight programming. I know we have a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, and that's something that's captured, and that's not a project. That is something your overnight camp participants, day camp participants, those are elements that are captured on the group enrollment form. So I think, I don't know what your opportunities are, Carrie, as far as meeting face-to-face, but you have pretty much a good day's worth of going, kind of that dissemination and clarification with folks as far as, okay, what projects are we going to have in that project repository?
Yes.
And then we can work on fleshing out, okay, what is the activity list, and make that, and then also making sure that the information or elements that are supposed to be in the group enrollment form are captured as well. So, and it may not be a face-to-face meeting thing, but I think this is something that
I think it'll be a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
And Stormy said that's why it seems so confusing, and I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, and camp is in there like 3 different places also. It's hard to figure out which category you should be putting everything in, because it's in all of them.
Okay, those I'm deleting. Those are not.
Oh yes, it is.
Projects.
Yeah, they're under leadership and personal development. Day camp and overnight camp are listed as projects. So we're going to work on getting that fixed.
Awesome.
And I definitely keep me out. I'll engage on those meetings too, because it's a lot easier if you hear it versus having to explain it in an email on. So community club, that's not a project. That clubs are clubs. Clubs are not projects. And then actually your community pride. Now that's just something that would be a very applicable activity, and community service.
So it sounds like if it's a club is a club, we know that one. If it's a project alias, it has a curriculum.
Right. And a project should have a curriculum too.
There's a difference between a project alias and a project?
No. Project
Okay.
alias. Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
It was Stormy.
Oh.
Sorry.
Your project aliases are going to be tied to a curriculum. Your projects will be tied to a curriculum. The project alias gives you the opportunity to add projects to this list that did not show up. So
Okay.
what's already populated in there is basically what's called or considered state level projects.
Okay.
Now for Idaho, that we have a little bit more formalized system where state supported means that we are taking the lead in ensuring that we're using the most up-to-date relevant curriculum, that it is tied to a land-grant institution, so it's tied to national 4-H curriculum or something offered by our colleagues in other states. We're taking the lead in offering training for the volunteers, as well as our state staff, so kind of that train the trainer, and then it's got a cycle where it's annually reviewed. So we've undergone over the last 4 years a major overhaul in curriculum, and that's the other hat I wear for Idaho.
Okay.
So there's an identified method to the madness on the curriculum. That being said, we've established criteria for counties to use on the curriculum to ensure that we're basically not teaching off of Pinterest. And the reason why that's important is that if you're teaching off of Pinterest, perhaps the food safety practices are not up to snuff. Perhaps people could die. And I'm being a little brutal here, but that is giving us a checks and balance that we are a land-grant institution, so therefore there's a expectation that we utilize the appropriate materials. When we were kind of doing our research on the materials used within Idaho, we were finding that elements that are in 4-H based curriculum, either offered by other universities or from National 4-H as well, is that those elements were not included in there as far as experiential learning and or inquiry based elements. And so that's where we were kind of like, okay, so now this makes sense when you have different clubs offering perhaps different projects, that they're using different curriculum, and then there's a huge difference night and day why perhaps kids in this club, were doing well at FAIR, kids in this club were not. There's different factors that play into that too. I'm just using that as an example, whether it's the leader actually doing, actually conducting meetings and making sure there's a teaching component to those. They're having a successful club and project experience. But we have definitely noticed a difference in the quality of materials that are out there now. And the state supported is kind of the checks and balance. So we don't, basically we put it out to counties that this is what we support at a state level. That does not mean you have to offer every project. So one of the things I did in my county, I would pare down that list into, and offer what I know I have leaders for. That being said, it's we have over 100 different project items available. We need volunteers to help lead that because, just a county person, me and myself and I can't do all of that. We can't absorb all that. So the ability to offer the projects is based on if we have leaders available. So I hope that helps explain that a little bit. But that is, the big piece on that is your projects are something that a piece of curriculum, and hopefully you're using those research-based pieces. That's the intent for that category is, and the same for project aliases.
And right now we don't have a system for state curriculum. I mean, I looked at some of those, and like I said, I've looked at them going, wait a minute, we're not, once it's more than me, myself, and I, we will develop that system. But right now we're, I'm hoping that counties are using the correct curriculum. And when I see those questions, I will ask those questions. Why are you doing this? Etc.
So since we're on, what are some elements that we could create in terms of activities, or what are some activities? I see one right off the top here as far as 4-H ambassadors. Let's see, we had talked about service learning. Now, Carrie, do you guys, is it service learning or is it community pride, or how is that referred to in Nevada?
It's not really referred, we don't really have a statewide vision. That's probably one of those things we need to come up with. What are we going to call it? Because we have two different things there that are the same thing.
Yeah. For as far as you guys that are on there, what would be potential, and although that's a little difficult because you guys are new to your positions, but I guess we could put like horse bowl as an activity.
Oh yes.
For that matter, I guess your livestock judging is an activity.
I've started pulling together some lists. And what I was going to do is send an email or some kind of survey out to the counties asking, okay, so how are you using, why are these in there? Just to find out some history of why those are in there, and then also let people know, that's not. The other thing I wanted to clarify is, as everybody's getting ready, we've got just a couple minutes left in the hour, but the other piece is when you go to your club enrollments, I'm noticing last year we still have in-school club enrollments, like we have counties that have got kids enrolled in in-school clubs and after-school clubs. And what I want to make sure everybody understands the difference between the community club, the in-school club, and the after-school club. So a community club is what we consider, it doesn't matter if it's got 10 projects or if it's got one project. If it's a project-specific club, that is a community club. The in-school club is when you go into the school or a volunteer goes into the school, they still hold business meetings, they elect officers, they do everything that a club does. That is not typically we don't typically have in-school clubs in the West. That is a Southern delivery method. And so I just want to make sure, if you are going into the school and teaching in the school, that is considered school enrichment. So the after-school clubs, again, they are conducting business meetings, they elect officers, they are doing community service, they're doing project work. If you are doing an after-school program, then that is considered an after-school program. So, and I know my understanding is before I came on board, my predecessor years ago told everybody to put all of their club enrollments under the after-school enrollment. I am telling you now, do not do that. Move them to the community club enrollment, unless you are truly doing an after-school club. But if it's just an after-school program, then that goes into number L, or letter L, or delivery mode L. So because I'm seeing that we still have those numbers. So I'm just trying to get those cleaned. I mean, it's fine because we look at the overall club enrollment, but I just want to get those cleaned up.
Okay, so I'll go through, there's definitely some items I found in the project list that you can, if there's activities that are at your county level, and you'll click on your activities list, that will populate. You should see a delineation between state and county. I'll work here to build a list, at least so you'll have some generic categories to help get you guys started. I did do some cleanup on the projects. Now, if you run into something on your project list that would probably be something that other counties are going to offer, if it's a big project, something missing on that front, let me know, and then I can add it at the state level, so then that way you guys don't have to repeat adding a project alias at the county level.
Yeah, Stormy was just asking, can we remove activities at the county level, or will it mess somebody up?
No, you can remove activities at the county level. If your county already has a list and those aren't going to be offered, don't worry, you can definitely clean that up. That's not a problem. So, all right, well, I think we're good to go. I am going to be out of town next week. I actually leave Saturday, but if you guys get into a pinch, submit a support ticket. That is working really well, and please use the support ticket. My inbox is actually getting my hits for any of my publishing requests from 4-H Online. So as an example, I had about 180 emails yesterday that come through. I have to update all the project requirements and that type of thing. So please keep any questions, those type of things on that Zendesk. That helps me greatly. It helps me keep organized.
Yep, and I sent that email out, that email address out again on Monday when I sent the reminder about this meeting. So I can never remember it right off. I know it's support@nevada4h.zendesk.com, but I can't remember if I can't remember if it's forward.
The 4 and the HR hyphenated.
Okay, thank you. I can never remember those things.
So I will be on next week. If you're talking when visiting with your colleagues, please encourage them to participate on this. This is a good way to bounce around ideas. I do go through, we tend to talk about a lot, and there's no such thing as a bad question. So I don't want folks feeling intimidated. I want y'all to feel comfortable using the system, and we're in it together. So thank you everybody for joining in, and I will see you here in a couple weeks.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and thank you guys. And I will be out next week too at the same place Erica's at, but I will, I'll have my email and everything. So